Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be giving you a sneak peek as far as our league's rookie draft goes. We have 7 rounds in our rookie draft, and today we're going to be going through our Dynasty rookie draft trade show, including IDPs, and we're going to be talking about a whopping 13 trades.
Hike!
All right, Joe. So, like I said at the top of the episode, we're going to be doing a peek behind the curtain. Talking about 13 trades. There's quite a bit of trades in our
A lot of
league's
trades.
rookie draft. There are going to be some players that we're going to be talking about that ended up getting shipped, or that pick, rather, was packaged in subsequent deals. So we'll try to have you follow along. It might, even Joe will say it might be a bumpy road, but stay with us. I'll help navigate us there. So let's talk about the first trade. This is really on the heels of the draft, right before. So we saw quarterback Dak Prescott. He was on a franchise tag, 1 year, $25.5 million, so fully guaranteed. The other team received a third-round pick, the number 40 overall, which turned into defensive tackle Braden Fisk, and then a 2025 third-round pick. So, Joe, what are your thoughts on this trade for these two teams?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a little skewed, Steve, as I was involved in this trade and the one that acquired Dak Prescott. But, I was surprised the owner in our league put Dak Prescott out there. And honestly, I think I got a steal for him, just willing to give up a couple of third-round picks. And, the franchise tag wasn't a big deal for me. I've already got an extension for him. So, a guy that was top 5 in our league last year, fantasy quarterbacks. I really needed help at the quarterback position, and get a guy like that for a couple of thirds. This was a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, I think for those who have not played in a salary cap fantasy football league, this is a little bit of a mind stretcher because from a dynasty standpoint, you'd be like, wait, what's going on? Even from an IDP, depending on how your league formats are, you might be even more your head spinning as to what's going on. But I think for the owner who was trading away Dak Prescott, because he was on the franchise tag, you can only get so much in return. Right? Owners are savvy. They're not just going to be like, well, I'd really like this player, so I'll give you a first round pick, right? Even though it's still Dak Prescott in a 16-team league, quarterback is, and the way we have our scoring, quarterbacks are very valuable. You could argue they'd be premium position in our league. So you could say that he didn't get enough, but at the same time, he was tagged. So how much could you really get? I think you really were the best offer on the table. A lot of people weren't willing to give because the reality was you ended up signing him long-term after the fact because, someone was like, well, once I have him on the franchise tag, then what do I do? Not to mention Dak Prescott's situation is pretty precarious, in my opinion. I mean, we don't know what's going on in Dallas. He can't be tagged. I don't believe he can be traded either. So he has a lot of basically no trade clause, no tag clause. So what happens to Dak Prescott next year? Does he stay with the Cowboys and get $60 million per year is what they're saying that he wants? Will he become a free agent? The likes that we've not seen, a guy of that caliber. Could you argue that he was a possible MVP candidate last year? So he's got a lot to prove. We always talk about Joe. When they're on a contract year, they're going to ball out so they can cash out. So I think overall, I like the deal for you on this side that you're getting Dak Prescott for this value. I do think that the other owner did get an interesting player in Braden Fisk, guy you really like a lot. Based on our defensive tackle rankings, I think it was very good value for him to get Fisk at that point. Really surprised he even made it that far, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, seems like a lot of people in the rookie draft, as you'll begin to see here as we go through some of these trades and talk about where players ended up landing. I feel like it was a lot, especially early, offense heavy. So a lot of the defensive players really fell in our draft. And yeah, Fisk was a great value. And like you mentioned, a guy I really like in the draft.
All right, so let's head over to trade number 2. Team A acquired Marvin Harrison Jr., who was the number 2 pick, 4 years plus $1, $43 million. That's a lot of money. And then you got wide receiver Malik Neighbors, number 3 overall, 4 years plus $1, $42.5 million. And then a 2025 first. So this is a pretty rich deal here, Joe. What are your thoughts there?
It was a rich deal, but I got to go with the Marvin Harrison Jr. side. I thought he was probably the top player in the rookie draft. Just that true blue chip player. he's the one like can't miss player in the draft, and everyone. I really like his situation with Arizona. We've seen Kyler Murray just hyper target number one wide receivers when they've had him. A guy like DeAndre Hopkins peppered him with targets. And they got Trey McBride, but kind of after that, they do have brought in Zay Jones, but the options kind of fall down. After Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride. And it's like I like Neighbors, and people could argue, yeah, the difference between Harrison Jr. and Neighbors isn't that far of a margin, especially to throw in a future first round pick. But I'm never really worried about trading future picks. You never know what that next draft class is going to be. But if Neighbors wasn't on the Giants, I'd feel differently about the trade. But just not knowing how that organization is going to operate, if Dable is going to be there, who's going to be the quarterback after this year, just a lot of unknown. So that's why I lean the Harrison side.
I thought you were going to roast me alive on this. I was the one who acquired Marvin Harrison on this trade.
No,
you were
I also
you were
wasn't
shaking your
gonna.
head, so I thought for sure that you were.
Yeah, I
Going to
wasn't gonna out you. And I wasn't gonna say that you did it. So, yeah, I mean, I can't blame you for what you did, because ultimately you made another trade that gave up the number one pick. Who, if you had the number one pick, you were gonna take Harrison Jr. So you ended up getting your guy.
Yeah, this doesn't give you the full context of all the moves I made in the
Right.
top. Really, if you just look at it, this move in a vacuum, it doesn't really tell the whole story. I think when it comes down to it, I wanted to go into the draft wanting Marvin Harrison, so it's kind of a head heart, type of thing. Head wise, I'm thinking there's not a difference of a first round pick between Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison, but I'm with you. I think there's a lot of uncertainty for Neighbors in his situation with Daniel Jones. Does Dayball make it again? After this year, I think he's on the hot seat. I think the whole front office is on the hot seat. So, if they bring somebody else in, what happens there? So I think he's a very talented player. I think Neighbors, has done really well. But even look at a guy like Odell Beckham, right? Had an amazing rookie year with Eli Manning. And I honestly think he really was never able to capture that lightning back in the bottle. He just was
He
a
got
disappointment.
famous off of one catch.
He really did. He really did. I mean, he was really good in that Rams Super Bowl too before he tore his ACL.
Yeah.
That was a highlight as well for him, I think, in his career. But nevertheless, I just think that for me, I think Marvin Harrison is that can't miss guy. I would say if Neighbors went to a different situation, I'm with you too.
Right.
Ultimately, I would have liked to have given like a second or third. I honestly think the first was a little rich. I didn't think that was necessary, but in order to get it done, that's what I had to do. So, so be it.
Yeah, probably rich, and you probably overpaid, but at the end of the day, you got your guy. And just a message out there. Yeah, maybe it wasn't the right value, but at the end of the day, this is fantasy. We're playing for fun. And if you don't have players that you like or are going to enjoy having on your team, it's not going to be fun. So sometimes you just got to have a few players on your team that you really like to make your fantasy experience more enjoyable.
Are you enjoying this episode so far? Well, if you are, subscribe to our YouTube channel, smash that like button, and hit the notification bell for upcoming videos. We do videos throughout the year, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store. Absolutely, Joe. So let's head over to trade number 3. Team A received defensive tackle Jerzon Newton, number 21 overall, 4 years, $16 million. And then wide receiver Xavier Legette, number 22 overall, 4 years, $16 million. On the other side, Team B, running back Trey Benson at number 19 overall, 4 years, $18 million. Linebacker Edgerrin Cooper, 33, 4 years, $11 million. And then cornerback Kenyon Mitchell, number 49 overall, 4 years, $7.5 million. Now, this is trade. You'll see as we talk about it a little bit later. It's a little bit funky because Team A and Team B did take some of these players or the picks that these players were then used for and kind of moved it around. So keep that in mind, Joe. But overall, your thoughts here on this trade?
Yeah, definitely interesting. This is where you're losing me though. I don't know what pieces are staying or going that helping this team.
All right. Well, I'll speak to it. So with Team A, we're going to hear about this later, but Team A traded 22 away and instead got traded down and got some other picks. Team B trades 33 to move up in the draft. So you'll see how that happened later in correspondence. I think in a vacuum, personally, I mean, I'm a little biased on Team A. I like Team A's move here. Really, the story on this trade is that Team B was trading up to get Trey Benson. And the reality was if they didn't, more than likely he was going to be gone. And I like Trey Benson a lot. But the thing is, when it comes to running backs, and you and I are similar on this, Joe, they have such a short shelf life. And I know everyone wants to draft a running back, but after that rookie contract is expired, most often we don't see that second contract. And if we do, it's not very long that they're relevant, unless you're a McCaffrey, right? These are the type of
Right.
guys that defy the odds. He's the unicorn, but it's not common. So to me, it's like, okay, for a team like myself, I'm rebuilding. So Trey Benson, if he ends up being any good, my hope is that maybe in 2 years from now, when I'm competing, I have this guy and I have him for 2 more years, and then after that, then what? So I understand. I think running back really is a position. I think people are so. I think there's a misconception, honestly, when it comes to running backs. I think people are overinflate their value. They want to draft them. They're usually the top guys to draft. I just think you had to be aware of especially in Dynasty, right? But for us in salary cap, it changes the game a little bit. But I think you have to be aware of your roster construction, and I think you have to figure out when's the best time to draft running back. Now, am I going to tell you to pass up a Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs? No, I probably wouldn't tell you to do that, especially Bijan. But this is a different story in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I still like the move because running backs are so hard to acquire, especially in our league that's 16 teams. There's a lot of depth. Some teams have depth at running back, a lot of us don't. So it's very tough. Teams don't want to trade running backs. Running backs is unless they're older. The older running backs are out there, but younger, running backs aren't out there. So sometimes you just have to take the pick. Like you mentioned, I would, of course, the smart move is going receiver. They're going to have that longevity, or another position that's going to have that longevity over running backs. But at some point, you need running backs on your team. Their starting position. Sometimes you have to call your shot, and Benson's, I think, going to be one of those really good running backs. And I guess you just got to hope that he does get that second contract that a lot of guys don't, so that he continues to kind of be relevant longer term for you.
All right, Joe. So let's head over to trade number 4. This is where it all kind of comes together, so you can have peace of mind here. So
All
Team
right.
A acquired running back Brian Robinson, 2 years, $3 million. Linebacker Junior Colson, number 29 overall, 4 years, $15.5 million. Wide receiver Malachi Corley, number 42 overall, 4 years, $9.5 million. Linebacker Cedric Gray, number 90 overall, 4 years, $5 million. In return, the other team received wide receiver Khalil Shakir, 2 years, $2.5 million. Linebacker Dorian Williams, 3 years, $4 million. Defensive tackle Ashawn Robinson, 1 year, $0.5 million. Wide receiver Xavier Legette, number 22 overall. We talked about that. 22 was traded. This is where the trade happened. 4 years, $16 million. And then cornerback Terrion Arnold, 50 overall, 4 years, $7.5 million. So both teams, for the picks that they received in these trades, took these players. So these picks were not traded after the fact. So this trade is crystallized here. So thoughts here on this move?
Yeah. Just looking at it, I mean, I like the team A side. Brian Robinson, I think, we talk about needing running backs. He should still be interesting. He's on a really cheap deal, 2 years, $3 million. And then obviously, you're going to call me a Michigan homer, but, got Junior Colson. But we both think he's the best linebacker in this class and get him at pick 29. Really good value there. I like the Malachi Corley pick. I actually passed him up, but I considered him at a pick earlier. And then Cedric Gray, solid linebacker, pick 90, pretty late, like we were talking about. The defensive players, fell back in the draft. So I like that pick as well. But for Team B, I think some of the pieces made sense. Like Khalil Shakir, a lot of people think he could break out. He's at, 2 years and $2.5 million. So if he ends up performing well, like everyone's kind of anticipating, that could drastically change things for that team. And then, Dorian Robinson's cheap. Ashawn Robinson, he's whatever. And then I really like the pick of Legette and Terrion Arnold for where they were able to get those guys as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting trade. I mean, I'm Team A here. I love the return I got. I mean,
Yeah.
I drafted best player available for Cedric Gray. Can't believe I had him. I think it was in the 5th round I got him. Might even be the 6th, I'm trying to remember. But that was unbelievable value in my view. I think it was 5th. But I was ecstatic to have him there. I think this trade, and sometimes I don't think there has to be a winner and a loser. I think both teams
Right.
can greatly benefit from this. But I think the part of this trade that will really could make it lopsided is how good is Xavier Legette. Because I think Legette has a lot of potential. We're going to be talking about our rookie draft rankings coming up here in our next episode, given our top 40. You'll see where I rank him there, including IDP. And when it comes to Legette, I think he has that AJ Brown type of potential. He's just a bigger bodied guy. So if he is a player like that, then you could argue, wow, I mean this could blow you away at 22 overall. It's a great value for him. However, if he ends up being like a Jonathan Mingo type, that's not as good.
You're right. Yeah. I mean, there's still room for Mingo to improve as well, but rookie year, I mean, that whole Carolina offense was just a bad situation. But yeah, for Legette, if Legette pans out to be that AJ Brown type, and if Shakir comes on and ends up producing long term as well, both of those wide receivers could be really valuable, and then you end up with the short term asset and running back with Brian Robinson.
All right, so let's go to the next trade. And we're gonna make the trade whole here. So Team A drafted defensive tackle T'Vondre Sweat, number 25 overall, 4 years, $15.5 million. Team B received number 33 overall, linebacker Edgerrin Cooper. We talked about how that pick was acquired in that trade a few trades back ago. And then quarterback Spencer Rattler, 48 overall, 4 years, $9.5 million. So these players that were taken with these picks went to these teams. So thoughts on this trade?
Yeah, I mean, you and I both agree with Team A here, and T'Vondre Sweat, where he was taken, was an absolute reach. My concern is just I think he's that big nose tackle that's going to plug the hole. He's not that upside defensive tackle, at least in my mind, that we're anticipating a guy like Braden Fisk to be, that's going to rush the passer, get the sacks. Sweat just seems to be one of those guys to occupy space and clog up the run lanes. But maybe we'll be wrong on that, but I know we kind of see that similarly. And, Team B, Edgerrin Cooper, I know a lot of people are high on him. I'm a little concerned about him, but he's still a great talent. And then, Spencer Rattler was also an interesting pick for where he got taken, as far as just taking a flyer on a quarterback and see if he ends up panning out.
And I think he may start a few games, honestly, whether Carr gets injured, which he has been, susceptible to having that happen to him, or Saints are just out of it and they, Dennis Allen's trying to save his job.
Plus, I mean, it's not like Carr's the long-term option there either. So if Rattler shows something, I mean, I know he flashed at the Senior Bowl, and it just crazy, man. A video that he was a part of when he was like 18, high schooler, is really costing him, big time. In terms, he just wasn't mature, and I think he's more mature now. And this guy was just once like Heisman top candidate, best quarterback, and then, loses out to, Caleb Williams, and then just kind of transfers to different places and kind of gets lost.
Yeah, as far as T'Vondre Sweat goes, I'm with you on this. I had him, I think, as a 4th or 5th round grade, pretty low, because I think he's just a nose tackle. Now, I do have an inside scoop as far as the thoughts from that owner, and I think the hope is that he maybe becomes a Dexter Lawrence type, which is definitely possible. I mean, Lawrence, is more of that run stuffing guy, and he's been able to do it. So not to say that he can't. It's just a question of can he develop those pass rush moves. And they already have a guy like Jeffrey Simmons who does that really good. So you've got really the hope, the pocket's got to collapse. Simmons has got to whiff, and then Sweat's got to clean it up, in my view. That's a lot that needs to happen.
Yeah. I mean, we agree on that. Maybe we'll be wrong, but, that's the way we see it. But either way, I just don't think that Team A had to trade up in order to get to T'Vondre. So I think that was the main head scratcher to me was, pick 25. It's still pretty early in our second round pick. I just don't think he had to trade up to go get T'Vondre Sweat.
All right, so going to the next trade. Now, Joe, this is another one that's a little bit wonky, so bear with me.
Yeah, I see that, Steve. You're going to have to work with me here.
Yeah, so Team A received running back Blake Corum, number 30 overall, 4 years, $15 million. And then safety Keaton Oladapo, number 125 overall, 4 years, $4 million. On the other side, Team B received running back Jalen Wright, number 39 overall, 4 years, $10 million. Tight end Theo Johnson, 47 overall, 4 years, $9.5 million. We'll talk about him a little bit later. That pick was later traded, and that team traded back. And then kicker Joshua Carty, number 95 overall, 4 years, $5 million. That pick was also used in a trade back situation. So a lot of moving parts here in the future here, Joe. But on the basis, Team A traded up in order to get Blake Corum. That's the story behind this trade.
Okay, so Team B has none of these guys.
No, Team B has Jalen Wright. You should know who Team B is. It's you.
Well, I understand. I didn't know I was Team B though because I don't have those other players. See, that's what
you have
confuses
Jalen
me.
Wright though.
Right, I have Jalen Wright, but it could have just been pick 39, and we talk about Jalen Wright later, like those other two guys. But nevertheless,
I understand.
Blake Corum, I think you're gonna call me a homer again, sure. But trading up to pick 30, I thought was a good spot for Blake Corum. I think there's a chance he just ends up taking over the Rams' backfield as well. I don't think, as good as Kyren was, he still has injury concerns. And with McVay just going with the hot hand, it's possible that, Corum just goes right in there, shows something. And if he is the hot hand, I think they could just stick with him. So I really like the move to trade up for Blake Corum. I was actually, at the time, a couple of picks away and hoping Corum was going to fall to me. And that was kind of the reason I traded back even to 39 in the first place.
So quick clarification on this. So this isn't you. You ended up acquiring 39 and 47
right,
later.
Yeah.
This was actually somebody else who acquired and then
Right.
shopped the 39 and 47 later. The only pick that this owner actually kept was actually 95, Joshua Carty. So you're right about that. See, you know better than you think.
Yeah, so it wasn't right. Yeah.
I think Corum is a great value here. I think I had definitely had Corum higher than Wright. And if this team didn't trade up to get him, then he wasn't going to get him, in my view. Wasn't going to happen. I think that we're working through projections right now. I would not be surprised if Corum ends up doing better than Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams can't stay healthy.
Right.
I'm worried about that. People were all, hotsy-trotsy about Cam Akers. I thought he wasn't the guy. I just thought it was going to be Zach Evans. Didn't think it was going to be Kyren Williams. So Blake Corum's a patient runner. He's a slasher. I don't know, Joe. I tell you,
man, his vision and cut ability is just next level. I know. So I think McVay, that's the thing with his vision and the way he cuts and can see the holes. I think he could just win over McVay and the coaching staff potentially, and wouldn't be surprised if he does end up doing better than Kyren, especially if Kyren gets hurt at some point in the season, like he tends to do.
All right, Joe, let's head over to the next trade. Team A received defensive end Latu, number 17 overall, 4 years, $18 million. Team B received wide receiver Jermaine Burton, number 34 overall, 4 years, $11 million. Defensive end Chris Braswell, number 66 overall, 4 years, $7 million. That pick was later traded to somebody else. They traded up. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And then a 2025 second-round pick. So, Joe, what are your thoughts over here? I got to tell. I'll just put my thoughts out first.
Okay.
I love Team B on this side. I'm not a big Latu guy. I can't believe they got Burton. They're going to use that 66 to move up later on. We're going to talk about it. And they get a 2025 second to boot. I think they got some premium value. I know you're a big Latu guy. You're probably liking the Latu side.
Yeah, it's tough. It was really interesting. Just because I do like Latu a lot, but I also like Jermaine Burton. I think he's an interesting player. And then to get a future second that could be valuable as well. So I think that's where I don't know if like one side won or or the other. Like I think both teams it made sense because the team that acquired Latu didn't really have a lot of picks, so they didn't really have an opportunity to get a good edge rusher. And to me, they were able to trade for the best edge rusher. He's free in my rankings. Latu is my number one guy. So to be able to get him, I think it was really good for that team to be able to acquire him. But no doubt that Team B, though, definitely got some good value with being able to take Burton in that future second.
All right, so in our next trade, We had Team A receiving safety Javon Bullard. It traded up to get him. That was the prize selection here, number 35 overall, 4 years, $11 million. Also took linebacker Maurice Leofau, number 53 overall, linebacker for the Cowboys, 4 years, $7.5 million. Team B received running back Jalen Wright, number 39 overall, 4 years, $10 million. Tight end Theo Johnson, 47 overall, 4 years, $9.5 million. That 47 was later traded in a trade back situation. And then running back Reese Zammit in the 7th round, 121, 4 years, $4 million. The rugby player that went to the Chiefs. Joe, we've been talking about this enough, so people should know that if they're following along, that your Team B. So you kept Wright and Reese Zammit. You traded Theo Johnson back. Thoughts on this trade with Team A?
Yeah, honestly, when I traded pick 35, I was a little nervous with who they were picking, but then once it was safety Javon Bullard, I was pretty excited because he wasn't on my radar. I wanted to go offense. I was really happy to get Jalen Wright at 39. That's the thing. At 35, I was really hoping Corum was going to get to me, but obviously got taken at pick 30. So consolation prize was Jalen Wright at 39. We all thought that the Liufu pick was a little bit of a reach there. There was some other linebackers on the board that they could have went with, but we'll see what happens. It's easy to criticize these teams now, but things definitely can change. But then obviously I traded pick 47 away, and then to be able to take a chance on Reese Zammit late in the 7th round there, I was pretty happy with. We also award points for kick return yards, so if he ends up winning that kick return battle, that was also a consideration to kind of steal some of those points.
Yeah, I think for me, Liafu, from what I understand, could be more of a special teams ace. Now, he was drafted pretty high for the Cowboys, and they don't have a lot of depth at that linebacker room. So I think it's very possible that he will take over the job. But it seemed like, anyways, from reports from the draft experts, if you will, he wasn't rated very highly. He just kind of came on at Notre Dame, so I think he's just a little raw. And then Bullard, I think, is an okay pick, but I really do like how you were able to get Jalen Wright and Reese Zammit. We're going to talk about what you got for the trade down in 47. And spoiler alert, I absolutely love what you're able to do. So let's go over to the next trade. So Team A received linebacker Peyton Wilson, number 44 overall, 4 years, $9.5 million. Team B, just a player back in return, running back Jerome Ford on a 2 years, $2.5 million. I think the appeal there is we don't know if Nick Chubb is fully going to come back healthy. So then, is Ford then the presumptive starter in Cleveland? So what are your thoughts on this trade?
Yeah, I know. Team A had been really trying to trade away Jerome Ford for a while, trying to ship him
Team
to me.
B. Team B. Oh, no, you're right.
He's
Team A
acquiring
traded
him.
away Ford. You're right.
Right.
You're right.
Yeah. So Team A was, coming to me for a couple different times, couple different trades with Jerome Ford. Just didn't make sense for my team, but I do think he's an interesting asset. And honestly, for a 3rd round pick, I don't hate it. He's a contract, as you mentioned, 2 years, $2.5 million. Really cheap for the running back position. So to be able to add depth and, like you said, potential for him to start with Chubb not being 100%. But I do like the pick at 44 for Team A with Peyton Wilson. I know everyone's concerned with the lack of the ACL in his knee, but at the linebacker position, we both really like this talent, and he's one of the outside of Colson. I really like Peyton Wilson after him.
I definitely lean towards the Peyton Wilson side for me. I mean, the no ACL is concerning, but the guy is just a ball player. I think he could have a really good 4 years in Pittsburgh. Whereas with Jerome Ford, it's like you're probably looking at a 1 year opportunity. I think maybe even next year they're going to be reevaluating that running back room altogether. Just don't see that guy having a long-term value. So I think he should not, in my view, he was not a 3rd round value as far as compensation goes in return. If I gave up a 4th, I would have more likely consider, but I think Peyton Wilson's more valuable at this point.
Yeah, he definitely is. It just, if that one team's trying to compete, he is an interesting. Ford's an interesting piece to have on your team, in order to compete right now.
All right, Joe. So heading over to the next trade, I kind of previewed this. Team A traded away tight end Theo Johnson, number 47 47 overall, 4 years, $9.5 million. So this was a team who traded up to go get him. And I think a part of the reason why this happened was because Darren Waller at that time had announced his retirement. So all of a sudden, Theo Johnson's appeal went way up in this draft when we were going through it. Team B, spoiler alert, he received number 52 overall, wide receiver Javon Baker, 4 years, $7.5 million. Running back Kamani Vidal, number 58 overall, 4 years, $7 million. And then defensive end Jalex Hunt, number 110 overall, 4 years, $4 million. Joe, I absolutely love what you did there. I mean, I'm a fan of all three of these guys. Baker, I think you could make a case that he's going to have a better career, in my opinion, than Jalen Polk. I mean, that's a little bit of a spicy thought, but I mean, I know I'm not alone in that take. Then you've got Kamani Vidal. Love that pick for Vidal. I mean, he's the I think deep sleeper darling of the rookie draft. Seems like his stock is only rising more and more and more. Question is, can Dobbins and Gus Edwards stay healthy? We already saw Gus Edwards is injured. So I think Vidal could have a really great opportunity. Question is how long. He was drafted really late in the NFL draft, which is a question mark, but I do like the upside there. And then I like Hunt too. I can't believe he was there in the 7th round. Guy who came from, I think, Houston Christian or something like that. But guy's got a lot of talent, and that edge rusher group now in Philly, I mean, it's kind of a new group. So someone's got to emerge from there. He's a guy I'd like to have, could probably place on my practice squad. Hope he develops in the next year or two. But I think he could turn into something.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty happy. I was able to take advantage of the situation where you mentioned Waller situation, but then Theo Johnson was really like the last tight end that people are going to be excited about as well. So if you wanted a tight end, they pretty much had to trade up with me to go ahead and get this guy. Because after Theo Johnson, the talent was just, taking a nosedive. But yeah, I really like the upside I was able to get with Javon Baker. You mentioned Vidal, J.K. Dobbins. He's never been able to stay on the field. That's been his issue. Like you mentioned, Gus Edwards already hurt. To mention the long-term side, that's definitely fair. But at least for now, I needed some running back depth. And, he definitely is everyone's sleeper this year. But then in the 7th round, like you said, I was in shock Jalex Hunt was still there. I know, he went to a small school. A lot of people might not have recognized his name, but I know pre-draft, watching the draft, these people were really excited about Jalex Hunt and just the talent that he could do. And with the interior defensive players that Philly has, he couldn't have went to a better spot.
So in our next trade, we talked about how Braswell, number 66 overall, was moved. So we're going to be talking about that. Team A received cornerback Nate Wiggins, number 62 overall, 4 years, $7 million. Team B received defensive end Chris Braswell, number 66 overall, 4 years, $7 million. And linebacker Jordan McGee, 103 overall, 4 years, $4 million. Joe, what are your thoughts on this trade?
Yeah, well, once again, Steve, it's a little skewed here. I did the move back from 62 to get those other two players. Team B, I couldn't blame the team going up for Nate Wiggins. Where he was the best corner on the board, and really, if you had him tiered, he was that last guy. Surprised that he was kind of making it that far, but I really like the two players I was able to get. I think Braswell is a really interesting guy with a lot of upside. He's got that speed and quickness, and if he's able to develop a few more pass rush moves, think he could be really interesting. And then, Jordan McGee, he's going to start off as like a special teamer now, but people are really excited about this guy and think that he kind of could long term, step over maybe next year as the guy for them for the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, this is a trade where I think it makes sense for both teams, right? I think for the Team A who received Nate Wiggins, he was the last real good corner left on the board. So if he didn't do it, somebody else was. I mean, people were looking to move
there was
up
another owner that wanted that pick.
Yeah,
and
for Wiggins. So
it was for Wiggins, yeah.
And then for you, I think you would have highly considered taking Braswell at 62. So you get, additional pick, the positive of trading back, and you get McGee, who is a good developmental guy who could turn into something. So I think it's a win-win for both parties because that other team needed cornerback desperately.
Yeah, and I think Wiggins is interesting. I think Baltimore is a good team to be able to utilize all of his talents. He was a guy that blitzed a lot. I could see, Baltimore's pretty aggressive. I could see them using him in that fashion.
All right, Joe, 2 trades ago. In our next trade, Team A received running back Isaac Guerrero, number 74 overall, 4 years, $6 million. Team B received linebacker Tyrese Knight, number 77 overall, 4 years, $6 million. And then safety Evan Williams, 117 overall, 4 years, $4 million. Getting towards the later end of this draft, Joe, some of these guys, they might not be aware of who these guys are. Thoughts on this move?
Yeah, it was interesting, especially for Team A, trades up for Isaac Guerrero, and now this was his only pick of the draft. So I thought it was interesting that he chose Guerrero. Christian McCaffrey gets the extension. He's gonna be there for long term here with the 49ers. So I just don't know what Isaac Guerrero's role is. I think he's a really interesting player, and had he gone to a different team, I'd think a lot more differently, but he just seems like he's another one of those interesting running backs that's just kind of going to get lost in the depth chart in San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there hasn't been that great of a track record with the Niners, right? They drafted Trey Sermon, bust. He didn't do anything. They drafted Tyrion Davis-Price, bust. So, I mean, they had Elijah Mitchell did work out until they brought in Christian McCaffrey. So, honestly, I like the other side of it. I mean, I like Tyrese Stein a lot. I think he's very under the radar. Great value in my view at this pick. Don't like the Evan Williams pick. To me, that's just a waste of a pick. To my knowledge, he's just going to be a special teamer for the Packers. Don't even think this guy's probably going to make it, for roster cuts. So had that pick been used for something else, I would have definitely leaned towards the other side.
Right.
But, it was what it was.
Yeah, I agree. The night pick was good, but yeah, Evan Williams definitely a little bit of a head scratcher, but who knows? I mean, the Packers had a lot of injuries in that secondary last year, and a lot of players were playing that people didn't necessarily know their names. Maybe Williams gets a shot sooner than we think.
All right, and last but not least, Joe, our final trade here. Team A received defensive tackle Michael Hall, the Browns, 85 overall, 4 years, $6 million. Team B received kicker Will Reichert, 88 overall, 4 years, $6 million. And wide receiver Johnny Wilson of the Eagles, 122 overall, 4 years, $4 million. Thoughts on this trade?
Yeah, well, honestly, man, it's just pick 85 for Michael Hall is just extreme value.
Unbelievable really, steal. I'm with you 100%.
Great value for him. I mean, talented guy out of Ohio State. Really like, his potential upside. So to get him at pick 85, that's just a great pick. And, shout out to our league for a little bit of kicker love. We announced a couple of kickers. They get the top kicker out of Alabama. It was interesting in Johnny Wilson, but Johnny Wilson, I think he's interesting. He's a big guy, but kind of lost in the depth chart. We'll see, how relevant he can become. But, gotta love the Michael Hall, though. That side, Team A, I like that side a lot.
I'm with you 100%. I lean towards Michael. I think that Team B would have been better off staying and taking Michael Hall. I mean, it's just a screaming value. Yeah. Riker could be a decent kicker. I believe, he could be good in Minnesota. So I think there is some value there. And Johnny Wilson's a flyer. But Mike Hall, there's just too much potential. And at the defensive tackle position, I wouldn't pass that up.
Yeah. And I mean, defensive tackles are valuable in our league, and there's not a lot of them, especially that have like a good amount of upside like he does. So pick 85. I mean, yeah.
And we start 2 of them too. So I mean, a lot of leagues, they'll start D-line. Not in our league. We start two defensive tackles. So it's an important position.
Yeah, with that premium, Hall was a great pick.
So that does it for our 13. Count them. 13 whopping trades when it came to our league's rookie draft. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. Obviously there was an intermingling of IDP and offense, talking about all the different trades that happened. Hopefully your leagues are as active, because I know for us, we really do enjoy the rookie draft. It really is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I did a lot more trading back and everything than I thought I was going to do, but ended up having the most amount of rookie picks ever, I think. So
yeah, well, a long time. Usually you're of less need. Forget those picks and you get rid of them.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, so going on to our next episode, make sure you check it out. We're going to be going over our top 40 Dynasty rookie rankings, including IDP. You're not going to want to miss that. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.